Welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first and the Bawku issue. A lot of issues, we will look at them. We have to read your comment, but we want to move on to the next important discussion to have. The MCE for Bawku insists, and he corroborates what I was actually, challenging Ayarga about, that it is not true that the civilians don't attack the military, and that there are actually evidences to show that. And he also says that it must be on the record that the NPP has not promised anybody anything as suggested by Mahama Ayarga. Now let's get to SML. That's the story that if you checked on the international wires, for example, the Africa report, January 17, 2024, their story is headed, Ghana, SML contract, scandal dents Akufo-Addo's anti-corruption image. It begins by saying the Ghana Revenue Authority's contract with Strategic Management Limited is to be suspended following an expose by local investigative journalism outlet, The Fourth Estate. Earlier this month, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo ordered the Finance Ministry and the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, to suspend the controversial revenue assurance contract with Strategic Management Limited, SML, tasking KPMG to conduct an audit into the appropriateness of the deal. Imani Africa and ASEP, Africa Center, have also done a thorough review of the whole situation. Bright Simmons has also done some other work, and all of them come to a conclusion that this appears to be a clear create, loot, and share agenda, and that the company SML does not deserve the 750 million Ghana cedis or so that it has already received, and then the extension of the contract that brings it to be entitled to annually about 55 million US dollars. They say all of this does not work. In fact, they indict the KPMG investigation audit and say that's actually not what is needed. Let's begin with Manasseh Azore Awine. Manasseh, thank you very much for waking up this time. What time is it in the US?
It's now 5 a.m., but I've been up the last 3 hours.
Thank you very much. You began all of this with your team, Evans, Aziamo, Mensah, Adjoa, Adobia, Owusu, on the story that hit our airwaves, the 3 billion Ghana cedi lie. GRA's data shows volumes decreased after shady SML contracts. As we understand, you have sought to procure information from various quarters, and it appears you are being denied. Others have been unequivocal, like the Petroleum Commission, that they have not been involved. Tell us where you stand after everything that has happened, including the President's instructions to KPMG, Parliament's intervention as well.
Thank you very much, Samson. I just need to say that the total amount that this company will be entitled to per the new arrangement is over 100 million US dollars, and not 55, as you said. The money is actually more than that. Now to the issues. The Ministry of Finance responded to a right to information request I sent, and then denied me a copy of the contract and other pieces of information. We sent this request in November last year, and then the response came a while ago. The Ghana Revenue Authority, we sent 2 requests, one in July last year and then one in November last year, and we have not had any response from the GRA, even though we filed an RTI appeal. Now to the responses from the Petroleum Commission. We knew that 3 main sectors were involved in the issues we're dealing with. That is the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, the Petroleum Commission, and then the Minerals Commission. The NPA deals with the downstream petroleum sector. That's the importation and transportation of the fuel products we use. And then the Petroleum Commission is in charge of the drilling of oil offshore and the production of oil. Then the Minerals Commission, as we all know, is in charge of the gold and others. So our investigation actually started with the NPA, and whoever watches the documentary will know that the NPA has put in measures that are adequate enough to police or assure government's interest in the downstream sector. And officials of the GRA we interviewed in this documentary actually confirmed this. The head of Petroleum, Samsi Enim, actually said the NPA's ERDMS, which is connected to Customs ICOMS, their revenue system, ensures that they get the volumes right. And once you get your volumes right, you get your revenues right. This is from the GRA. So we know that the NPA is covered. Then we went to the Petroleum Commission, because on the website of the Petroleum Commission, it says that it was established by an Act of Parliament, 2011 Act 821, as the result of the hydrocarbon discoveries in commercial quantities to regulate and manage the utilization of petroleum resources and coordinate policies in the upstream petroleum sector. So when we saw that a contract was being awarded to a company to go to this upstream petroleum sector, we wanted to know if the state agency that is mandated to regulate and coordinate policies in this sector had any knowledge of it, whether they had information of leakages, whether accidental or deliberate. And so we did a right to information request, and the Petroleum Commission, I must say, responded very swiftly to our request, which we included in our report, and said that they had no knowledge of this contract, and that they have also no knowledge of any report that suggests that there were such losses in the sector. Then we wrote again to the Minerals Commission, and the Minerals Commission, according to its official mandate on its website, says it is the government of Ghana agency with the primary responsibility of developing and coordinating mineral sector policies and monitoring their implementation. So when they failed to respond, we appealed to the head of the entity, and we got a response this week. And this response came from the CEO of the Minerals Commission, Mr. Martin Ayisi, who actually said that the Minerals Commission did not play any role in this contract to SML. The Minerals Commission again stated that it did not have any report to suggest the losses in the sector. And the Minerals Commission went ahead to say it actually conducts periodic audits to assure government's interest or revenue in the sector. So what all of these point to is the simple fact that there was a letter that said the Minister of Finance, and we know the Minister of Finance is Ken Ofori-Atta, had determined that revenue assurance or monitoring should be done at the upstream sector and also the gold mining sectors. And these responses point to the fact that the state institutions that are mandated to monitor and ensure government's interest in these sectors were not involved. They had no input. They did not report any losses to the Ministry of Finance. And when the Ministry of Finance denied a response, one of the questions we also put to them was whether or not the ministry had received any reports from the sector agencies. And they denied to give us the contract, but they responded to that question. And I read from the Ministry of Finance letter, which was signed by Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, a Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. And the letter says, we do not have direct information on purported reports from agencies in the petroleum and mining sectors about losses in the downstream, upstream, and mining sectors. So the question that we need to be asking, or Ghanaians should be asking, is if there wasn't any such report, what was the basis or what informed Ken Ofori-Attah's decision to ask this company to go and do this work when the existing contract, as we all know, the downstream sector, this company has performed.
So those of you who are watching on TV, what you're seeing now is the response from the Minerals Commission, from the Petroleum Commission, where they were categorical that they were unaware of what was going on. And so they couldn't help Manasseh with any information, as he spoke about. Yes, please go on.
Yes, so what I was trying to say is that the question everybody should be asking now is what informed the Minister of Finance's decision to ask this company to go to the gold mining sectors and also the upstream petroleum sectors. When, if you look at the Minerals Commission's response, it actually says that it conducts periodic audits together with some state institutions to ensure government's interest and doesn't have a hand in this. And back to the other issues that have come up, I think the Imani and then the ASEP statement made it very clear that the only defense or maybe substantial defense that the GRA gave in the wake of our investigation was that this company actually saved us money because when they started operation, volumes went up. And their own figures, which they were reported to the Ministry of Finance under the ESLA, actually contradict this claim. And that in 2022, the volumes actually went down. And this goes to add to the fact that the company, SML, which made these claims, backed down or said no, they weren't true when we confronted them. And about the KPMG and the president's action and everything, I think that the presidency had enough information or evidence to have at least abrogated the expanded contract and also call for an audit or an investigation into the existing ones. So that is my take on.
Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Theo Champong. Dr. Theo Champong, thank you very much for making time to join us once again.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, so what do you have to say about the developments as far as the SML contract with the state is concerned? ASEP and Imani have read over their assessment and review using the government's, as in government entities' own data, and coming to the conclusion that there was no any assessment to show that we actually needed a third party like SML to do this revenue assurance. There was no any such assessment. And that in fact the data that was being used for tax purposes is not anyone's data, but the data that is generated by the MPA. So it's as if we are throwing money to a company for no work done. almost 750 million Ghana cedis over the period. And then we extend the contract to the gold area, and we are being told that that one too, annually, they are going to get what these groups refer to as a giveaway, about 55 million each year for free. Where do you stand from your analysis of the situation in the face of the OSP's work that has commenced, Parliament, and the President's decision to also bring in KPMG for an aspect?
So thank you once again, and pleasure to be here. Luckily, I have worked in this space over the last 10 plus years on both mining, oil and gas, and then the downstream sector. And I can say on authority that this contract is not needed. The expanded contract, or even the one that was done before, is not needed and should be terminated or abrogated. So in that regard, given what Manasseh has just said, and others have also said, it is very clear, and I'll come to the details in a moment, that the SML contract is not needed. Number two, it does not really add any value. And even some of the purported claims, when you actually look at the data and you do the analysis, it cannot be substantiated for one reason or the other. The first point I would like to make in terms of the detail is what Manasseh talked about. These state agencies actually conduct a lot of periodic audits, and I've actually been involved in some of them in the past under different, donor-funded programs, and they are supported by relevant legislation or regulation. So let's look at, for example, the upstream oil and gas sector, right? Beside the law that sets up the Petroleum Commission and gives them the mandate to do what they do, there's a raft of other legislation that gives them scope and room to audit and then also to check the production volumes that are coming from the sector. The most important one is actually a piece of LI called LI 2246. It's the Petroleum Exploration and Production Measurement Regulations. And that LI has enough detail that shows the revenue assurance processes and the mechanisms that one follows in trying to basically ensure that the state is getting its fair share of the oil volumes that are lifted. We also, on the oil platforms themselves, they actually have electronic meters, right? So in the early days of the oil industry, there was an issue where some exports of crude oil took place without the meters not working fully. Subsequent to that, so this is basically after 2013-14 thereabout, we've actually had these electronic meters that have been installed on the platforms, and then also GRA itself carry out physical inspections. So whenever a tanker is leaving the offshore platform or these export vessels, they actually do measurement and dipping, and there's a whole series of mechanisms that are involved to basically ensure that you're getting the right volumes that are due to the state. Number two, if you look at even the PIAC reports and other reports in terms of what we are getting from our entitlement share of the revenues, often there's very little difference between what we're getting and even what the companies are getting themselves. So if you now say you're going to do an audit, and even this audit, we're not even sure what exactly SML was going to do to add to that. There are companies, if you even wanted to do, for example, a cost audit, there are companies that are out there that have, one, the capability and the capacity to do a thorough piece of work on cost auditing, and I'm not talking revenue audit, cost auditing, than what SML purports to have done. So if you look at the evidence and what the agencies do already, there is nothing whatsoever that SML would have done that adds any value to what currently exists, because the agencies by law do these audits themselves anyway in that regard. Again, if you look at the downstream sector and you look at the MPA data, you look at the ASEP statement, you do the analysis over 10 years, over 20 years, it is very clear that this consumption increases, this up and down, it changes year on year, right? So the point that at one point, they talk about a 33% or so increment in volume or consumption because of SML, that is not borne by the fact. In fact, you look at that and you look at the analysis, you can see in some years the growth rate goes up, some years it comes down in the way that is follows the dictates of the market. So you look at the ASEP statement and it says that, quote, the analysis indicates that SML's data was intentionally inflated to validate its contract with GRA, and it bore no correlation with the data employed for revenue accounting. And I strongly stand with that, because I've looked at the data myself, and again, it's very clear that there is no value whatsoever that SML is bringing, that already the existing institutions in the country are not doing themselves. In the mining sector, again, you've got the likes of PMMC, you've got the Customs Division of GRA, you've got Minerals Commission as well, and again, there's a lot of periodic audits that are done. Even if we're not even assured, right, of those audits that are done, go and look at the Gaiety report, the Ghana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. They actually issue a lot of reports over the years. The last report that was done, I think, was for 2020 or 2021. And you can see the detailed payment schedule and what the companies are reporting on the large scale sort of mining sector. And again, the claims of what SML was going to do in that sector is not substantiated by the evidence on the ground. So the claim of making savings is not proven. There's nothing new that they are going to do that adds any incremental value to the country. And number three, if they even wanted to do that, there are other specialist niche companies that are more in tune with doing customized cost auditing.
And this is where you guys with expertise in the field are questioning the sole source for this particular company, which was a timber company that has metamorphosed into now an audit assurance company, right?
Precisely. If you want to do it, there are ways to do it. One, you involve the state agencies. Number two, make sure that you've gotten the company that actually has proper technical expertise and competence to do the work. And on both of these fronts, I'm afraid to say we've actually failed, right, on that side.
Now, before I get
I think it's quite clear, something that contract is not needed, and it should be, in my view, abrogated
forthwith. Before I get to the Member of Parliament, and they too have been seized with this issue, and now it looks like things are being taken from under them. In the Imani ASEP, extensive review, they say that there's a point which has some positive, and I wanted to find out from you if you share that view. Apart from the fact they say that the perplexing extension of the contract to encompass gold production adds another layer of bewilderment. This move appears to be driven by the Finance Ministry's questionable influence. Once again, if PMMC, the Customs Division of GRA, and the Minerals Commission are perceived as failing in their duty to protect the state's interests, the imperative is to rectify and strengthen these institutions, rather than creating a royalty of 0.75% for SML. This seemingly arbitrary addition amounts to an annual giveaway of about 55 million at a minimum. I think it ought to be an annual giveaway of over $100 million instead, because the $55 million is for the gold sector alone. So overall, the company is to be making over $100 million every year. Okay, so that's correct. Now, my issue here is they suggest that if you think that all these state institutions are failing to do the right thing, you should rather give them money, part of the money. They say there's an annual fee of $40 million allocated to SML. It says that could be used to significantly contribute to the operational efficiency and enhancement of the numerous institutions. What do you say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, look, what the two agencies here have said, so both the Petroleum Commission, Minerals Commission, and others, basically is contradicting, right, what the finance ministry or GRA sought to do in the case of this contract, right? That you're basically saying that we don't trust our state agencies and institutions to do a thorough job. I can understand when you say you don't trust them or you don't believe them if the issue is one of competence. But I have worked in this space for a while now, and I can also tell you that it is not a question of competence. Sometimes it's resources that are available to do the job. And even when the resources or you need extra, call it consultants, to do that, there are ways and means that you can bring them on board to support or complement the work of these existing institutions. So if the question really is, one, you believe that you're not getting enough of those revenues and there's some sort of short-changing or to use the common parlance, kalabule, right, for want of a better word. What you do is you resource the institutions much better to do the work, not to bring other bodies or agencies, and particularly in this case that don't even have the wherewithal or the technical competence to even do the work, right? And then number three, there's even a legal dimension here as well, which is also a bit lost to us in the debate. If you read the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, right, it's very clear at the top that you cannot use oil revenues to do certain things. So when you read this particular contract, and it's to the point that for every additional or incremental barrel of revenue that they collect, they're going to get paid a certain proportion. I struggle to reconcile that with even the provisions of the law. And I think there potentially could even be some issues with violation of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, in this particular context here.
Right.
So what ASAP and Imani are saying, which I align with and which other people have said, is that if you think there's a problem, resource the institutions to deal and address with this problem, not create this parallel structures, which at the end of the day doesn't really do much to add any value whatsoever. And with this particular contract or case, when you do the thorough analysis, look at the data over 10 years, over 5 years, it is very clear that there is no incremental value add that SML is bringing.
Right. I'll ask the lawyer about issues of potential causing financial loss, because if in the government response it brought out, it suggested as if there was some data that they were relying on that led to the appointment of SML through sole source. But all the review shows that depending on MPA and GRA's own data, they are not using SML's data for the tax purposes for which they were employed in the first place. So is that some sort of financial loss being occasioned? But my question is, how significant is this? That the MPA, the Minerals Commission, the Petroleum Commission, all who must play a part in determining whether there was a need for this entity, played no role at all. How significant is that?
It is damning if you look at the statements that have come through, because for a major piece of work like this, normally you have state institutions that are involved, because SML cannot manufacture their own data. They've got to get data from the respective state, agencies, together with, with GRA. And often I know that these state agencies work sometimes closely with the GRA. A few years ago, there was even a petroleum revenue management or assurance body that was set up, which was at a cross-institutional, level to ensure that some of these data issues, some of these revenue issues are all sort of, addressed. So the point that it looks on the surface from what the statements the MINCOM have issued, Petroleum Commission and others, that there was an attempt in a way to even sideline them, right, from all of this, process that is ongoing. And that does not augur well when you want to build institutions that stand the test of time, particularly institutions that by law have been given a certain mandate, right, to carry out some of these things that they do. And we have proven on this platform and others that these bodies and agencies actually do these audits anyway, periodically. So what is new that SML is going to do that they already do not do?
Interesting.
But further to that, the point that you are now even, sidelining them and trying to take away the core work or an aspect of the core work that these institutions, are meant to be doing.
Interesting. It sounds like, when I process it, the Supreme Court, by the Constitution, has been giving the exclusive original jurisdiction to interpret the Constitution. Yeah. That's the job they have been giving, and we pay them to do that. And then there is a need to do that, and then you go and give that job to, you set up a group of people, a private company, and say, here, do that job. It won't work.
Let's say you go and give it to regional tribunal.
Okay, right. Regional, that will still even be the state.
Legitimate.
So, what do you see? I would like you to comment on the question of potential, financial loss. But what do you see? That Parliament began by saying, we are going to look into this. The Speaker directed so. Then there was a petition to the OSP. The OSP, in its report, says it is commenced investigations. Then the President says, let KPMG come in and give me an audit. And SML is very quick to say KPMG will exonerate us.
Yes. Everywhere you'd have said the same thing, especially if you understand the triumvirate of relationships between the GRA, Ministry of Finance, SML, and the external audit works that KPMG does for these entities. Now, Samson, I support the idea that this contract amounts to causing financial loss to the state. And I'm happy that Dr. Champon went further to indicate the existing legislation, the enactment, that's Regulation 2246, which is the Petroleum Exploration and Production into bracket Measurement Regulations 2016. If we go particularly to Regulation 21, 22, 23 of that LI, it tells you what the entity is supposed to do. And the verification process, all the procedures are provided under the law. So I wouldn't have had problems if these engagements were by the Petroleum Commission. Because you see, the law mandates it to undertake this process. So if it thinks that it lacks the internal capacity, then of course you could expend some small money, get an external entity to assist you to carry out your mandate. That's not what is happening. The Ghana Revenue Authority, and before I go into this matter, let me draw your attention to a similar contract that the same entity entered with the McKinsey Group. You recall? We brought in a South African audit firm ostensibly to come and help to enhance our revenue mobilization efforts. And when at the time GRA was doing about 23 contribution to nominal GDP in terms of revenue, we brought in the McKinsey Group around 2018, ended up paying them $18.5 million. That contract generated a lot of problems for the GRA and its board with Ministry of Finance. It led to the removal of Carlos Ahinkra from the GRA board. It led to the removal of Kweku Kwatin also from the GRA board. It led to the removal of Senior Adoyobo, Mrs. Junior Adoyobo from the GRA board. And it was their departure that brought in Professor Day and the present Commissioner General, Reverend Amishadai. The McKinsey one was under Kofi Nti when he was then the Commissioner General. So this is not the first time the GRA/Ministry of Finance will bring in an entity supposedly to come help us generate more revenue, only for us to discover that they were not doing anything anyway. It was just an avenue to drain our resources. Now, Manasseh has gone into this matter. If you look at the formation of SML, SML was established in February 2017. They established two companies. They established what they call the SML Innovations, Strategic Mobilization Innovations Limited. Then, a week later, that was established on the 8th of February 2017 for purposes of engaging in trading of goods and services. It had nothing to do with audit of entities or revenue enhancement mobilization. Then a week later, then they set up the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. Then they had the same people, the same address given in Tema Committee 1, same address, same telephone number, same director. But in case of the second one, they changed one of the directors to Patrick Edusei. And then they added auditing services. Auditing. That's the purpose, that's the additional purpose they added to the second one they established on the 14th of February 2017. Then almost immediately they got business with the GRA without exhibiting any background competencies. If you look at their books.
Why that reference? Is it about Christian Soti from controller? Then he moves to GRA to work for the GRA boss himself. And then the contract is entered. Then shortly he leaves GRA and he's the head of this private company.
I am making the point to corroborate the point made by Manasseh that this company and Dr. Tio Champion, that this company exhibited no prior competencies or expertise in the area. And being a company freshly established.
So the sole sourcing was not warranted?
No, if you look at the procurement law, at all. At all. And especially when upon auditing their work, it appears that they were engaged in no work for which they were supposedly contracted. So for me, a crime is being committed here. Tomorrow it may be looked into. 1, for causing financial loss to the state. 2, for conflict of interest on grounds. Because it's so unacceptable that the mandate of a state entity has been hijacked by another state entity, offloaded to a private entity, for which they are doing practically nothing, and we are losing so much money. It appears that the 18.5 million paid to McKinsey, after which they packed out of this country in 2021, in 2021, pills into some shadow. When you compare
this $100 million US each year.
So when it was 18.5 million, the minority leader at the time, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, on the floor of the House and on behalf of the minority, in concluding his debate on the approval of the 2021 budget, decided that this matter be looked into Because we couldn't be paying McKinsey $1.5 million every quarter. And so when the agitations began, and they had to terminate the contract and allow them to leave, eventually we paid them $15 million for terminating the contract and $3.5 million for administrative charges. Everything went to $18.5 million. Even that one, we thought that it was mind-boggling for that kind of money to be given to this external foreign company. Now, a Ghanaian company is contracted, and the monies we are paying them has been tripled and quadrupled for a similar work, which independent audits are establishing that they truly haven't done any work. So Sam, this matter. So the fact that the matter engaged Parliament, the minority moved a private member's motion, got debated, and the motion got adopted. Speaker directed that the Finance Committee look into the matter expressly and submit a report. So they were to have moved into action as soon as we went on recess on the morning of the 22nd. No, on the morning of the 23rd. Then in the course of the Christmas festivities, the matter became very topical, and the president directed that KPMG be contracted to do this. It's been over 2 weeks. Even if we have any issues with the directive, I am saying that it's over 2 weeks. Where's the report from the KPMG? They were given 2 weeks to look into this matter and bring a report. It's been over 2 weeks. So even directing KPMG, some of us had.
I think there's a suggestion that they would have got an extension of time because the time was too short.
The directive was made public. You accepted the responsibility. If the time frame given to you as an entity was too short, you should have openly stated that you are willing to do the job, but the 2 weeks given to you by the president was too short. So you pray for an enlargement of time. We haven't heard that publicly. So I am expecting that the KPMG report would have been ready by now, submitted and made public. It's not happening. So it appears that it's again another scheme to cover up this whole thing.
Right. The matter about the audit too, and I'll get a brief comment from Dr. Theo Champong and Manasseh before we wrap up on this. And I need to state that the state actors have declined to participate in this discussion, and it's understandable. Yes, yeah.
Look, we are in an RTR era. State institutions would still think that they can hide public documents and not make it public when citizens make harmless requests for them to smell the coffee, to wake up and smell the coffee. An RTR request is the Ministry of Finance saying that when Manasseh and his group are invited by KPMG as purposes of the audit, they wouldn't have to speak to this contract and the terms. So why are they supposed to get a copy when you are in possession of the copy and you don't want to make it public? What exactly are they hiding?
That's also an interesting aspect of it. But the fact that what is being sought, does it do anything to your work in Parliament and also of the OSP? The OSP has issued its half-yearly report, and it gave us an indication that it is commenced investigations into the contractual agreements between Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, SML, a company registered in Ghana, and Ghana Revenue Authority, and investigations into the appropriation, sale, and lease of state-owned lands, and so on. So OSP has also started.
It does not detract from the ability of the Finance Committee of Parliament to also inquire into the matter.
Okay.
It's just that it will amount to waste of state resources, because Parliament, working through its Committee of Finance, they will incur cost on the public purse. OSP doing so will incur cost on the public purse.
That's right.
Then KPMG certainly will bring a bill for us to pay.
Right.
On the same...
But it is possible that Parliament or OSP may have invited the expertise of entities like KPMG to assist them. So, same cost.
No, it does not. KPMG's work, based on the President Directive, is a different contract between KPMG and the state, initiated by the executive. The activities that the OSP will be carrying out under its mandate in respect of this matter is to perform the functions of its office. Of course,
corruption related.
Yes, it will be occasioning some cost on the public purse. Parliament, certainly, an organ of state, the cost that will be incurred, members sitting, clerks coming, they will be fed.
Dr. Theo Champon, briefly and finally, the terms of reference of the audits by the president. Some say this does not even include value for, what do we call it again? A value analysis, so to speak. What do you say? Value for money analysis, yeah.
There are 6 things that were listed in the terms of reference. Maybe for the purposes of our readers or listeners, it would be good to just quickly run through them. And you can see in the 4th one that there's some value for money analysis in there. So it says, number 1, conduct an audit to ascertain the rationale or needs assessment performed prior to the contract approval by GRA and assess how the arrangement aligns with specific needs. Number 2, assess the appropriateness of the contracting methodology, so the issue of sole sourcing and the likes we've discussed. Verifying compliance with legal standards and industry best practices in the procurement process for the selection of SML. Number 3, quickly, evaluate the degree of alignment between current activities and the stipulated contract scope, identifying any deviations. Number 4, evaluate the value or benefit that SML has so far offered to the GRA through this engagement. 5, review the financial arrangements, including pricing structures, payment terms, and resolution of any financial compliance issues. And lastly, number 6, submit a report of their findings on the above with recommendations. So you can see in 4 and also in even 3, it does point clearly, in my view, to doing analysis on the basis of the value for money.
Okay.
But from what I know in this industry, on the oil and gas, mining, and also downstream, I would be surprised if the findings actually come out to indicate that, SML has actually offered any value to the state so far. And number 2, value that or work that the existing institutions could not, have done. I would be quite surprised if, SML as they claim, the work of KPMG is going to exonerate them. I'll be surprised in that regard, because you can look at the data, you can look at the analysis, you can look at whatever it is. It points to the fact that there's nothing that they are adding to the state when it comes to extra revenue assurance. And for that matter, the monies that have been paid them is money that could have been better spent building more hospitals and roads and schools than just giving them out.
That part about they doing basically nothing and getting paid and have been paid about 750 million Ghana cedis so far and have gotten an extension of the contract and are looking forward to $55 million each year, and cumulatively together with what they are doing already, they are looking to over $100 million every year. That is so mind-boggling that I struggle to appreciate all you guys, the analysis you do, that the Ministry of Finance, the GRA, will get into this contract and there's no benefit whatsoever to this country, and so much will be given to the company. I can't get it. How will anybody do such a thing?
Something quick one. We've been in this country before. Number 2, the process of doing this revenue assurance and audit and all of that, right? I've already indicated that there are legal provisions that allows the existing institutions to do that, and they actually do it periodically anyway, right? So if there was any issue or there was any flags or revenue losses, how come, we haven't necessarily had any of these in times past? Number two, if indeed SML has added any value, right, or offered any value so far to GRL on which it has a contract with, let them come and prove it. They issued a statement, and we've also done analysis that shows in their own statement that the claims that they make are not founded, it's not warranted. And there are other people or even processes and companies that can do some of this revenue assurance thing, right? And I've even then argued that if you want to see where we are actually losing money, even like in the oil and gas space, it is not on the revenue side. There are issues with cost.
Yeah.
And how the companies account for cost, transfer pricing, and you name it. That is not the work that SML does or can do. There are people that are better qualified or companies better qualified to do that. So if you really want them to add value, let's change the scope. Let's do more cost auditing.
You guys,
to actually find
are you
out
really serious about this? Please, because I can't believe it. I've read the Imani and ASAP thing over and again over the night. That in fact, what the GRA has been doing for its revenue assurance is data from MPA and not from the SML. I can't get
SML
it.
SML does not manufacture
They
data.
don't generate
They
data.
have to take the information.
But that is why they were engaged.
They don't do it.
They are engaged to come and do analysis using tools, software, and things to say, okay, based on MPA data, based on Petroleum Commission or oil liftings data, we think that there's some extra revenue somewhere here that the companies have not paid. So therefore, issue them a back tax demand and let them repay back, right?
Okay.
And what I'm also saying is that if you take that same data that SML would have relied on to do the analysis and all of that, there is nothing so far in the data that shows that SML would be adding any incremental value in terms of additional revenue, on which basis then they justify the payment that's been given to them.
You have made that point. Thank you very much, Dr. Theo Champong. Manasseh, in a minute, what do you have to say? Because I'm just lost. When I read all the analysis, and I heard you speak in the documentary to the MPA, National Petroleum Authority, and you are dealing with petroleum. I just can't get it. And they said they didn't understand what was going on. And they felt that it was duplicitous, a duplication. MPA. Now, the Petroleum Commission itself is emphatic. We have nothing to do with this. The Minerals Commission says we have nothing to do with this. No surprise, government spokespersons will not be on this show this morning. What's going on? What's your final comment?
My final comment is that anybody who is surprised by this may perhaps landed from Jupiter last night or is a very young child who is about to turn 5 in this country called Ghana. I'm saying this because procurement is the avenue through which Ghana is milked, through which revenue.
The CDD continues to say that.
And I have been doing this for over the years, so I'm not surprised. And a week or two before we published this report, there was a public lecture at the University of Ghana delivered by an astute businessman called Tony Otengesi.
Yeah.
And he actually tackled procurement. He said it is one avenue through which state institutions and state officials milk this country. And he wondered, this was his question, that if those people were doing businesses in their own capacity, the average Ghanaian would haggle and then bid down the price. So why is it that when they are in public office and they are supposed to represent our interests or procure, they just do things that makes us lose so much money? It will interest you to know that Mr. Tony Otengesi is the board chairman of the GRA. So he knows what procurement does to this country. So I don't think
Well,
we should be surprised.
Professor Stephen Adair, who was also board chairman of the GRA, came out and has been speaking about the deep-seated corruption.
Yes. So to just end with your whoever or those who are saying that these people bring no value, it isn't anybody else saying it. They had advertised on their website that a check under declaration, diversion, dilution, and malfeasance in the system. And we, in our investigation, went through the entire process and we were convinced that the company couldn't be doing what it was doing. We went to SML. We first went to GRA. GRA said, no, they are not doing any of this. Then we went to SML. We confronted them. They said, well, it is a mistake. So they deleted this and put it on the, deleted them from their website. And if you watch the documentary, I asked, have you ever detected any single issue of under declaration since you started operating? They said no. So you have people like Professor Ransford Jampo of the University of Ghana. He has an article saying that SML was doing or checking under declaration, and the suspension of the contract means that people are going to steal revenue. I think if he had read or listened to the documentary, there were two instances that the company itself said they weren't checking under declaration. And then the GRA, they said that they use the figures from NPA to calculate their taxes and not the figures from SML. So whatever that people are saying, these statements or conclusions come from the data available, data published by the GRA, NPA, and state institutions, and then what SML and GRA people said in this document.
And it must be said that the Imani is a comprehensive analysis and review they have done. They don't rely on any outside data. They use data of the GRA and the NPA.
Public entity.
Oh, God. Anyway, yeah. All right. So it's what it is, and people are saying this smacks of create, loot, and share. It's not that it's some mistake that's been done by anybody, but this is people siphoning money from the state through a very easy process. Pass it on to a company so that it is known that you are doing something right, regular. Then you go and take the money and use it for whatever you want to use it for. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much.